that introduction. Thank you so much for the gift of being here. That mission statement, I mean, what you are all about, could there be anything more important this time, in this season of our lives? So I'm so grateful for the invitation. And that song, thank you so much, Kyle, for that and all you're doing to set me up here. This is a season, isn't it? We're all in a season, and we're all in individual seasons, in a collective season. So whatever season you're in, I hope that today will be useful and practical and give you something to walk away with. So like I said, my name is Leanne. The fact that I would be working in transitions, a transitions guide, that was farthest from my mind. When I was young, I wanted the forever life. I never wanted to change. I moved to Kansas City in 1981. I got my dream job at Hallmark. And when we got the job at Hallmark, we were told that this is the last job you'll ever have to get. You will never write a resume again. And I felt so grateful to have landed in Hallmark. It was a wonderful place to work. And then I moved to Persimmon Hill. My husband and I we were building our forever house. And I met what would turn out to be my forever friend, Holly, who we reconnected with lately. But I thought, this is it. I never have to move again. Even when I moved in before my first son was born, I imagined that on my porch would be the welcome home from college banner because we would still be here. And when we built a playroom, I thought this will be perfect for my future grandkids. Well, none of that turned out. My forever husband, not my husband anymore, my forever job, I changed careers in my 50s. My grandkids, hopefully they'll come to my playroom now, but not coming to that place. So anybody else have a life that turned out different than they thought? So when I left Hallmark and went to St. Paul School of Theology, got my master's in divinity, and did a whole career changed to chaplaincy. And here's a little note to self. If you're going to change careers in your 50s, you might not want to go to a trauma center where you have to do 24-hour shifts and then go to class the next morning. So that was not in the brochure. But all the changes and transitions that I've navigated, I thought if I can be of help and use to others, then that's what I want to be. So whether you're in a transition now, whether you've come through a transition, whether you're feeling the effects of this collective transition season that we're in our country, in our world, I have some practices and some guides and some ways to navigate it or to tuck in your pocket for when a transition may be coming. And I love the mission statement that, we trust the divine within. So I'm not coming with any answers, but if I can point you to your higher power, your sense of the divine, your wisdom that is within you, then this will be time well spent. So, uncertainty. It's a truth, right? I think maybe we had the illusion of certainty in the past, but that illusion is slowly or fastly being stripped away. We never know. Uncertainty is always present. It's how we live within that uncertainty that can affect our sense of faith and love and purpose and meaning and joy. So if you are feeling unsettled right now, or if you love somebody who is feeling unsettled right now, maybe we can normalize that a little bit and find ways to live with that uncertainty. But the main thing is that it doesn't mean that we're broken. It doesn't mean that we're off course. It's a condition that we can experience together. Do you remember when malls first came to being a long, long time ago? I was very sensitive and overwhelmed by space and crowds and everything. So when I would go to a mall and find that sign that says, "You are here," it just gave me a sense of security. Okay, I know where I am. I know where Claire's Boutiques is. I'm good. So I elaborated this terrain of transitions because it can help us know wherever we are, where we are. You are here. So it's very simple. I'm sure you've experienced this before, but I just think it's helpful to lay it out. There's the path behind us. So that's where we were. And maybe we chose to do something different. Maybe we chose to change, or maybe change was imposed upon us. Maybe change came in the form of an illness or a breakup or a job change. but somehow we needed to leave that path behind. And when we were cast out of that path behind, oftentimes we don't know where we're going. You know, the future is very uncertain. We might have ideas of what we want our life to look like, or we might not at all. So that's the way ahead, the way forward. But in between the path behind and the way forward, there's that wilderness, that messy middle. And oftentimes when we're in that wilderness, we feel so many different emotions. You know, that unsettled feeling, or we might feel like we made a mistake, or we might question, well, maybe it wasn't that bad back there. Or we might think that, how did I get so off course and everybody else has a map when I'm just stumbling around in the dark? So sometimes people call this the messy middle. But if we can just locate where we are, so where maybe we're in the path behind and we're not sure if we're going to make a change. We don't know if we want to move. We don't know if we want to leave this job. We don't know if we want to take this course of treatment for a health situation. Or maybe we have, you know, like we said, move forward and we're in that messy middle. Or maybe it's pretty clear where we are now and we're in the way forward, but it still feels a little trepidatious. So wherever we are, if you can locate, I am here. And once we see this pattern, we can't unsee it. It's all through scripture, it's through life, it's through, you know, it's just part of being human. If we go to the Hebrew Bible or, you know, Christian or Jewish scriptures, you know, there's being under bondage with Pharaoh, and then there's the promised land. But in between those, there's that wilderness. And there was a lot of grumbling in that wilderness and that question about, well, maybe it wasn't so bad. So can anybody, just show of hands, can you relate to where you are or where you have been in the train of transitions? Yeah. And so just locating yourself, just saying, I am here. And the thing about being in the wilderness is it can feel so... You can feel so alone when you're in the wilderness, like you're the only one. But just to know that there are fellow travelers out there. Maybe it's dark and you can't see them, but there are others there. Oftentimes, if we want to get into the psychology and the physiology of going through a transition, when we feel under threat, then our amygdala is like hijacked. And we feel, and that's when fight, flight, freeze, or now they're identifying fawn. You know, those trauma responses come up. And those responses can really isolate us and make us feel like we're broken or alone or, you know, cause all the physical symptoms. But just to know that uncertainty, being in the wilderness, just to normalize it, you know, all who wander are not lost. It's okay to be in the wilderness of change. And often it's a good thing not to rush to get to the way forward. Sometimes if we let that anxiety and uncertainty propel us into action, we might not make the best decision. We might sign up for something or, you know, commit to something that's got us out of the anxiety and the uncertainty of the wilderness, but that might not be the best thing yet. So I'm going to introduce a practice to us that I came up with for myself. And that can help us to navigate wherever we are, if we're still in the path behind, if we're in the wilderness, or if we're in the way forward, and help us to know what would be best for us right now. So this is what I call the compass of transition, because wherever you are on that journey, you can use a compass, right? And a compass, what I like about a compass is wherever you're standing, it's how you orient that can determine your next steps. So if I'm standing right here, I don't know directions very well, but, you know, if I'm turning, which way's north? Which way? Okay, so here, you know, I'm facing north, but I can just stay in the same place, and then I can face a different orientation, or west or east. So a compass can help us not only know where we are, but navigate towards what's needed. So a second ago, I talked about sometimes we want to rush to the way forward without having done the work that we need to do to make sure that we are putting ourselves on our best path. And that's why I put sacred pause in the southernmost part of the compass. We've heard that oftentimes you want to descend before you ascend, And so this is just giving us permission. When we find ourselves unsettled, when we find ourselves not knowing what to do, if the options don't seem good, then just giving ourselves permission to take that sacred pause. Sacred, I like the definition of it, just it's set apart, so we can give ourselves permission to mark this moment. And what do we need here? Perhaps we need to grieve. We need to grieve the life that we thought we were going to have, the health that we thought we were going to have, the bodies we thought we were going to have, the families, the relationships, giving ourselves to really go through that grief process. A lot of times I work with people and they just feel like they don't have time to grieve, or grief's not going to be productive, or if they open that grief gate, they'll be so flooded with so many emotions. And so there are pathways through grief that we can really make it and help inform us to guide our steps through that wilderness. And that I always like to talk about 2 or 3 lane roads that, we can grieve and we can grow at the same time. It doesn't mean that we have to isolate forever and get closure, that word that I don't even believe in. So whatever is needed in that sacred pause. So like I said, maybe it's to grieve, maybe it's to rest, maybe it's just to be in nature for a while, maybe it's to connect with the divine in the way that you best do. So giving ourselves permission. And so if we face west, that's soul inquiry. And that's where I've heard it said that like winds predominantly go from west to east. Science people, is that right? Yeah. So I put the soul inquiry to the west of the compass because that's like heading into the wind. And it's just really giving yourself permission to slow down and face the wind, go internal, and just ask what needs to be asked and listen to what needs to be heard. So maybe there's questions like, what emotions are present right now? Maybe there's anger, and a lot of times we're taught not that anger is a bad emotion, but I feel there are no bad emotions. They're all productive and useful and instructive. So what is the anger about? What's beneath the anger? Oftentimes if we're really angry, we might feel, if we go beneath that anger, we feel a sense of powerlessness or deep, deep sadness or grief, or maybe fear is here. So what's the fear about? Where am I feeling fear in the body? Is that fear telling me to slow down and stop? Or is the fear telling me to move ahead with it, but we're not going to let fear drive? We're going to, I'm going to drive and fear's going to ride in the back seat, but I'm going to still go forward through that wilderness. So the soul inquiry orientation on the compass is really just giving ourselves time to ask, to listen, to hear, to feel, and to say it's all okay. I am with you. The divine is with me. My friends are with me. But I'm taking time to ask, to know myself deeply. Transitions are really a time where we can listen, learn about who we are in this moment. On the north part, the north orientation of the compass, I put meaning making, kind of our north star. Wherever we are on the terrain of transition, wherever we are in the compass, we can make meaning. And how we make meaning determines how we're experiencing the journey. We can say that this is because I've messed my whole life up. This is because I've taken the wrong road. This is because of, we can tell ourselves stories that are not very helpful, right? And the suffering that we're going through, the physical or spiritual or relational or physical pains, that suffering is real. But in Buddhism, they call it the second arrow of suffering, where we're experiencing that physical pain and then we inflict deeper hurts on ourselves because we're adding to the story in a negative way. We're telling ourselves a story that doesn't serve ourselves. So how we are making meaning in any part of our transition is really, it's instructive. And we can listen to those thoughts and we can challenge them and we can make meaning in a way that serves us in a more helpful, useful, instructive, compassionate way. And then we have aligned action, and that's on the east part of the compass. So if that wind goes from west to east, this is where we can have that wind at our back. And we can take one small step What's the next right thing to do here? I love that from the recovery language. What's the next right thing to do? The next right thing might be as small as going to bed earlier tonight so I can get some much needed rest, or getting a drink of water, or signing up for that class, or having the courage to call a friend and say, I'm really suffering. Or it might be something bigger, like, moving. If this, a new home will suit me better. But aligned action. So at any point, it's our orientation that matters, where we are in that compass of transition. So anytime we can turn to what's needed most, north, towards how do I want to make meaning of this moment or this situation, or south, I need to do a sacred pause, or west, I need to listen and ask and get to know myself deeper at this time of change, or take one step forward. However we get that information from ourselves, at the center of the compass I've put embodied integration, because this isn't book learning. This isn't, this is how we are living, how all of this information, as we go through the transition, how it's landing in ourselves and our bodies, how we're going to move through it. I love John O'Donohue. Anybody familiar with John O'Donohue? He's a Celtic theologian and poet, and he talked about transitions as thresholds. And a threshold can be rather long. We want that instant fix. We want to just snap our fingers and have everything be different. But John O'Donohue says that how we navigate thresholds determines who we're going to be on the other side. Because who we were when we stepped into this new season is going to be different than who we are as we step out of it. So navigating that transition, whether it's a week, a month, a year, or a decade, it's going to change us. But we too are empowered to walk with the divine and say, participate, co-create about how we will be changed in the process. So how do we know where we are on the compass of transition? I'm going to offer you another tool. And that is the Karen practice. How many of you know what a Karen is? Those little small stacks of stones. Yeah. I knew about them, but I hadn't really paid much attention to them. And I started paying attention to them more after my season of caregiving ended. I cared for my mom for 7 years, and she had advanced Parkinson's. She was in a memory care center first, and I would see her every day. And then the pandemic happened, and I knew that she would not survive in there without seeing me. She had some dementia, and so on March 20th, 2020, I brought her home and kept her with me for, I thought it might be a couple weeks, but, like all of us, we learned what the pandemic was going to do as it progressed. So I ended up caring for her in my home for 4 years. And after that season ended, I really lost myself in many ways. I had left the job as the executive director of spiritual care and ethics at the trauma center and hospital in Fort Worth because I couldn't do the 24/7 trauma work with the hospital and also the 24/7 trauma caregiving work for my mom. So I moved us both back up here, my home where my family is, and took a fully remote job. After my mom died, though, it changed everything. I had such meaning and purpose with my job in Texas, and I had such meaning and purpose with caregiving. And all of a sudden, that remote job I was doing, it was not using my gifts. I just felt a little bit lost. So I started backpacking. I took 2 backpacking trips and learned how to use a compass and learned how to sleep outside and navigate through scary places. And when I left that job then, I knew I needed some more time for discernment. I was in the wilderness of change, and so I needed to reset. I'd lost my confidence, I had lost my direction, I'd lost my way. So I bought a backpack, booked a trip to Porto, Portugal, and started walking the Camino. Are you familiar with that pilgrimage? So I started walking that by myself. And that was going to be my time my sacred pause, my time to grieve, my time to just get my bearings again, to connect with other people. Well, I didn't really think that through too much because this is a year ago last winter, and turns out there aren't a lot of people walking in winter. So I would go like whole days, 8, 10, 12-hour days of walking, and I would not see another person. And what I would see though were these Karens. And whenever I would come across one, I would just feel such a sense of peace and such a sense of, I don't know, settledness. Like I thought somebody has been here before, somebody else made it through, and they thought enough about me to mark that place. I just took it very personally because I needed that encouragement at that time. But I just thought about the balance that it took and the time that it took to stack those rocks. And it just gave me pause, and it gave me encouragement. I didn't exactly know that I was on the right way, but I know I was on a right way, and that was enough. You know, it helped me to trust my path, trust where I was in that moment. And so that image really stayed with me. And as I was trying to put together how I had helped myself through transitions and how I could help other people find their way, I used this as a reference point and built a little practice. So if this is helpful to you, I'm happy to share it. So I'm going to take us through this in a moment in a little guided meditation. But it just combines elements of how to orient ourselves or how to know where we need to be on that compass, whether we need to take a pause, whether we need to ask within, whether we need to make meaning, whether we need to take action, or how we're going to embody this. So the C is center. So that's just like that beautiful meditation that we just did at the beginning of service. Feet on the floor, just being quiet, being with ourselves, giving permission to take this moment to just check in with ourselves. And we can do this anytime, day or night, just whenever we need to orient ourselves, and we're not sure yet how. And so A is acknowledge. Like I said before, I don't feel like there's any bad emotions. They're all instructive. So just what is here? So it might be an emotion. It might be anger or fear or joy or wonder or physical symptoms like fluttering of the chest that we interpret as anxiety, or it might be tension in our shoulders or some physical pain, or maybe we're really thirsty, but just what is here? So noticing it without judgment, accepting this is what's here now. And then inquire, ask. Maybe it's what does this moment need? Or what do I need right now? Oftentimes we don't ask what we need. Oftentimes, especially people who are so caregiving of others and concerned about other people, we're focused outward and we can see what other people need, but we don't ask what we might need ourselves. So this gives us permission and time to ask, what does this moment need? What do I need? What's my next best step? So that's actually, I'm getting ahead of myself, my end, but the rest, this is the step that's been really helpful to me. After we're discerning, after we've paid attention to our bodies, our minds, our spirits, after so much has maybe arisen as we're taking time to be with ourselves, just to give ourselves time to rest. So maybe it's resting in our sense of the divine, resting in our higher power, resting in self-compassion, saying, it's okay, I'm here, I've got this. Hand on our heart. That's such an efficacious thing, just to put your hand on your own heart and breathe into that. We talked about the heart center before, but it's a physical way to experience being in your own heart center and experiencing that love. And so resting, giving yourself that moment, and from that place of being centered and calm, gently ask, what's my next right step? And just listening and seeing what emerges. So, are we up for it? You want to try it? Okay. So, let's bring to mind maybe something you're going through right now. What feels current? What feels fresh? It doesn't have to be big or traumatic, but just if something comes to mind that you would like some guidance on, some support, some inner wisdom, internal wisdom. And just breathe in and out. Just notice your breath. Not trying to change it. Just feel how it feels to take fresh oxygen in. How it feels to be supported by your chair. Feet on the ground, connecting with the earth. What it feels like to be you right now. And then we're going to acknowledge what's present right now. How's your body? A quick body scan. Any tension in your temples? How are your shoulders? Your heart? Your stomach? Your legs? Any overall feelings of calm or fatigue or pain? Just notice what's here without judgment. Any emotions present? Are you feeling peace or anxiety or grief, fear, numb? Whatever it is, just notice what's present. And then is there anything beneath those emotions? We're inquiring now. Anything beneath the anger or the fear? What does this moment need right now? What do I need? What does my body need? My mind? My spirit? What do I need to do later today or this week? Just notice what arises. And then let's rest. Rest in a sense that everything is okay. Everything is exactly as it should be. Rest in the divine's love for you. Rest in your own goodness. Rest in the trust that you know yourself and you will care for yourself and you're surrounded by love. Just take it in. And notice the breath that is nurturing your body and your heart that beats without you having to do a thing. And then just ask the gentle question, what's my next right step? What small action shall I take? And gently listen to what surfaces. And if an answer doesn't come in this moment, just trust that it will when it's needed. And a couple more breaths in and out. And when you're ready, just come back into the room. Thank you so much for going on that little journey with me. Just a show of hands, was that illuminating in any way? Did it give you any wisdom from your bodies, minds, or spirits? And isn't it? It probably was just less than 2 minutes, but if we give ourselves time to pause within the day and just ask what's needed right now, just time to look within, and just notice how you feel now. Notice how you feel before that 2-minute exercise and after. But thank you so much. Every time you see a little stack of stones, I actually have, I started carrying a stone in my pocket just to remind me to take time out in the day to do that. And I have a little stack on my desk because, especially when I worked in the health system, caring for 15,000 employees and 3,000 physicians and 1.2 million patients a year. I was so focused on what they needed, but I just didn't. I need reminders to turn inward. So whatever reminder would be helpful to you, to give yourself permission to take that little break on your own journey. And hopefully that will help you then know what orientation you need in the compass. Do you need to take more time to make meaning, to ask deeper, to take that next step, or to give yourself time to grieve? So lots of different ways to check in with ourselves, to make sure that we're okay on this little journey that we have in life, especially for navigating transitions. And just always remember that you are so blessed, and just give yourself permission to bless yourselves along the way too. So I want to offer you and leave you with this blessing. May your compass stay true. Oh, I can't see it because of my Zoom thing. Okay, may your compass stay true. May your Karen remind you that you are never lost, and may you walk gently, one faithful step at a time. Bless your journey, bless you all, and thank you so much for the invitation to be here and for walking this journey with me.